Hello to the chicos and the chicas, welcome back. This is near round 9 recap video. Apologies for the delayed upload, but last night the game actually stretched out a lot longer than many of us would have thought, for one thing, and secondly, right after the game I had an interview which went for another hour with Ben Johnson, and I didn't really have the willpower to start recording a recap video at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:20. So yeah, here I am now with a slight delay, but I hope you don't mind, guys, because today is a rest day anyway. So on the menu was the dreaded Berlin, and just because of this match is, as I said to Ben last night, is a gift that doesn't stop giving. Even the anti-Berlin, they managed to turn it into something absolutely fascinating and super sharp. So let's see what happened. We are following theory with d590 to DED, and at this point everyone would be like, ugh, symmetrical structure, anti-Berlin, okay, the players opted for an extra rest day. Little did we know that at this point, at move 8, we could almost count on another 80 moves to be played. Holy moly. a5, a4, all theory. I would like to reflect a little bit on knight b8 for those who are a little bit newer to chess, because this looks like the ugliest move in chess history. But in fact, it's a very logical and not uncommon positional measure. When there is a pawn on c3, it completely kills a knight on c6. And so it is very logical to try to reroute it. And the optimal square for the knight, by the way, is on c5, when it has both of these pawns in its range and the tender squares here and here. And so generally speaking, the knight goes to d7 or a6 and is en route to c5, and it also allows black to kick the bishop on b5 with a c6 move. Just a little positional nuance. Now, roughly about this was the position when I started to begin I started to wonder about why this position is not looking like $1 million for white, with this stock standard knight h5, knight f5, knight h4, knight f5, Ruy Lopez rerouting, which appears to be unstoppable, with a subsequent serious white attack. And indeed, this is exactly what materialized in the game. Queen c7 was played. I believe that this was one of the new ideas by Ding Liren, an extremely counterintuitive move, because you would expect the c7 square to be retained for the knight to read out this way and this way, potentially, given that c5 is not accessible because of the bishop is there. So if c5 is not good, like I said earlier, which is one of the squares you want to go to, then c7, e6 is perhaps the other way. But Ding and his team, I guess, they would have done the homework, and they figured out that bishop f8 and knight c5 indeed is the way to go. Absolute bonkers. Bishop a2 was played. I was already wondering here about why not knight h4, knight f5 and just turn on the aggro. And I think I found the variation here with rook b8. This b5 counterplay that was featured in the game, by the way, was one of the things that made this setup and the whole game playable for Ding. And I found here an extremely surprising tactic too. So my line went queen e2, b5. Hello? b5 is hanging, no? No, friends, it's not. Always be ready for the tactico. Bishop takes f2, check. And now if queen takes, then black picks off the bishop. If king takes, then we have got a checkerino here or here. It doesn't even matter. And black picks off the b5 bishop again with sufficient counterplay. So I suppose we need to pull back, and then we will get some very similar stuff to what we got in the game. But perhaps this was still the way to go with some knight f5 shenanigans. I definitely would actually, maybe knight f5 right away, or even knight g6. Yeah, I don't know, but I definitely feel like this is White's game to play, and White's game to have fun with. Queen f3, bishop takes h6, threats just like in the game. Anyway, Nepo did bishop a2 first, then queen e2, then rook b8, and then knight h4. So basically we are arriving at the exact same position, and after queen f3, once again the bishop takes h6 threat is already on, and Ding, to probably a lot of people's shock, went like, you want bishop h6, have it. And yeah, this is just one of those positions where the more you look at it, the more you go like, surely Surely black can't hold the fort here. I mean, there are so many white pieces aiming at the black king. It just looks absolutely irrational and illogical that black can hold the fort. And yet, that is precisely the case. There is no productive way to go forward from this position for white other than taking f8, eliminating the bishop, which is probably the best defender of the king. And after rook takes f8, play queen e3. This was the move that the commentators really wanted to happen. And I dare say that this is perhaps the best way to go on. Now, if we take on h6, there is queen takes h6. And the defense is now quite tricky. In fact, here, black must rely on this rook a2 Saccarino. We need to destroy this bishop so that the checks on g6 are not in play. Although, the engine seems to claim that knight e8 also holds. I didn't think that this would be good because I thought that we had some rook lifts. What says you, machine? Machine says queen d6. Huh. Very cool. Very cool. And after queen g5, check king h7 and then queen h6. Not queen g6 because that hangs due to the pin, right? But king h7 and then the queen will slide to h6 and happy days. Now what happens if I start with horsey hoppity hop? I guess the same story. Yeah, queen d6. And again, I just can't get there on time. Wow. So turns out 98 also holds. Okay, that's very cool. And if after g8-6 I take the knight, then I suppose that queen b6, offering a queen trade, or rather begging for one, and then trying to weather the storm with this absolutely horrific pawn structure. I can't even count as far as how many black isolated pawns there are. It's a too big number for me. But yeah, there is one of those is an extra. So yeah, black is a pawn up, but is probably fighting for survival here. Bishop g5 was questioned by the engine, shall we say. Even a gentle exclamation, no, sorry, question mark was attached to it by the .com bot. And indeed, it seemed like the game was just following an extremely logical path with this bishop c1, bishop a3, reroute onto this diagonal. And whilst watching it, everyone felt, including the commentators, that black was in serious trouble here. And it turns out that there is no clear way at all to prove that white has anything here. Black has got various ways to create counterplay on the queen side, including some very cool exchange sacrifices. I'm going to show you one. And yeah, for example, here rook c2 was even playable, which looks very shaky because, boy, this rook is feeling really vulnerable here. But so is the c3 pawn. And after bishop c4, knight b3, there is trades to be had on c1. So rook b5 might not have been even necessary. And of course, rook b5 was already played with the knowledge that black might need to sack an exchange here, meaning that after bishop b3 we will just leave the rook on prey. So bishop a3 was played, very logical, rook e8 was played, and after bishop c4, bishop e6. And I think there was a huge level of excitement, at least on the .com commentary team, when they heard that bishop e6 is best move according to engines. I very sincerely doubt this. I don't want to contradict the engines because that would make me look like a complete doofus. But to me as a human, I would go like, let's take this, let's go rook d1 and let's see what happens. And the engine claims 000, not even a 007 James Bondian slide edge for white. No, absolute dead throw. But to me as a human, it just doesn't look that apparent. Like, we are an exchange up. Yes, black has this beautiful pawn mass, but said pawn mass is not going anywhere. And also the black king may be a little bit more vulnerable than usual because of the lack of the h-pawn. But after rook c8, it is very difficult to find a way to make progress. And black has knight b3, queen c3, pressure on the c3 pawn. So maybe this is right. Maybe this was just simply not something that white could work with. But if that's the case, the excitement was quite large about the power of bishop e6, but I'm not seeing it. It seems to me that now the position fizzles out. Kudos to the players who played out here the moves that led to an exciting endgame scenario. But rather than exciting, I think the best way to describe it was very drawish. So queen e2 was played, queen c4 was played again. Beautiful squares for the white pieces. Yeah, I guess the whole entire game, I guess, and that was a bit of a theme, by the way, in the commentary team as well. We tended to admire the white potential, the beautiful squares for the white pieces, and somehow we overlooked the fact that black's defense was brilliantly designed. And in fact, they always come on time, and the black pieces always join the party on time. Like knight f6 here, for example, would have been a good move, which also just on time puts the e4 pawn under pressure. But queen c6 accomplished the same with knight f6. And all of a sudden, if I flip the board around, we have to say that, yeah, the white pieces are brilliantly placed, but there's nothing to sneeze at in the black army either. So it is just one of those dynamic equilibriums, I suppose, where both sides play out their dynamic trump cards, and in the end of the day, it just fizzles into an endgame. Which, credit to Nepo, by the way, despite the fact that this is very drawish, he played it on for an eternity. And fair enough, he had an extra pawn, he tried his best, but Ding's defense, oh, the cheeky knight g3, wow, that was very, very interesting. What really shocked everyone, by the way, was how quickly Ding went knight f5, and in turn, how quickly Jan rejected the idea of taking this. Now, in a practical game, I'm almost certain I would have taken this. Because this is an extra pawn for white in a rook ending, which is meant to, like, this is dead draw, right? So if I remove the knights from the board, 3 against 2, don't even bother. Dead draw. But with the pawns broken up like this, a protected passer on the H file, it is still a theoretical draw. But boy, this is a tough challenge. This is a tough challenge. So maybe I would have done it. Nepo immediately rejected it, and eventually they landed in a knight ending. And here, Nepo's facial expression was like, what? Surely this is not right. And indeed, the two pawns side by side offer white opportunities to bite into them. But there was nothing to be done here. H4 was the best try, I reckon. But after king f4, H3, a very cute counter sack right away, splitting the white pawns, forcing a pawn on the edge. And then the king just came up to f6. And from here on out, there is no realistic chance to win the game, because if we start pushing this pawn, it's going to be blockaded and eventually gobbled up by the black king. Nepo tried the repeated positions multiple times, and yeah, they just went around the ring of roses and circles, and eventually they had to give in to the fact that this was a draw. And indeed, draw was agreed at this point in the game. A super fascinating fight, very interesting game again, and that was the actual game 9 review, because I forgot what game we were up to last time I did my review, and I accidentally recorded the previous one as round 9, so now I'm doubling up on the round 9 games. So rest day today, and then we are going to look into a super exciting round 10 where Ding really needs to show something with white. Because those white games are running out rapidly. So super exciting stuff ahead. Stay tuned, guys, because I will be back with more. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to sub, to like, to super thank me if you can. And I will be back with round 10. Bye.